Life often leads us down paths we never anticipated. An ordinary moment can unexpectedly set the stage for a story that changes everything. This is the tale of Akachi and his sister, Nyah, whose lives were wrapped in the shadows of a hidden mystery. Akachi was a simple yet responsible man. After the passing of their parents, he took on the role of raising his younger sister Nyah with unwavering dedication. However, behind his calm demeanor lay a quiet sorrow, concealed from the world. Their village, Isaro, was a serene yet isolated place, where the night was lit only by the glow of the moon. Nyah, just 19 years old, carried an air of innocence, but beneath it lay a surprising depth of understanding. Her love for her brother was boundless, yet her eyes often reflected a restless unease, as though a hidden truth weighed on her soul. One chilly night, Akachi sat on the veranda of their modest home, lost in thought. An invisible burden seemed to hang heavy on his heart. He held a small diary that he always kept close. Its pages were filled with incomplete thoughts and hidden stories that only he could understand. "Brother, why are you staring at the moon like that?" Nyah asked with a gentle smile. "Just thinking, Nyah. Sometimes life feels like this moon, half in light and half in shadow," Akachi replied, his lips curving into a faint smile. But that night was unlike any other. A strange sound came from the direction of Isaro's forests, a noise that resembled a distant call. Akachi and Nyah exchanged glances. "Did you hear that, Nyah?" Akachi asked in a low voice. Nyah's face reflected a mix of fear and curiosity. "Yes, brother, but maybe it's just the wind." Yet, deep down, both knew it was more than just the wind. The next morning, Akachi visited the elders of the village. They spoke of the forests and their tales of those who ventured in and never returned. But Akachi dismissed their words as mere folklore. Nyah, busy with her college work, found her mind repeatedly drifting back to the sound from that night. She tried discussing it with Akachi, but he would only say, "Don't worry about it, Nyah, nothing's going to happen." Still, her intuition whispered that the night was far from ordinary. Then one day, Nyah stumbled upon a file in Akachi's room. Inside were old photographs and newspaper clippings. One clipping caught her attention. "Unexplained disappearances near Isaro. Police remain unsuccessful." Nyah's heart skipped a beat. "Brother, what is this? You never told me about it." Akachi quickly closed the file and replied, "Nyah, some things are better left unknown." But Nyah's suspicion had only grown. She resolved to uncover the truth, even if it meant risking everything. One night, while Akachi was away on an urgent errand outside the village, Nyah decided to open the file and read every detail. Inside, she found names and places she had never heard of before. One photograph had a message written on it. "Akachi, you must never reveal this to anyone." Nyah's breath caught. Who could have written this, and why? She flipped the photo over and saw more scribbled words. "If you want to know the truth, go to the old derrick tree in the forest." Under the cover of darkness, Nyah made the bold decision to venture into the forest. Little did she know, this journey would be the beginning of a terrifying new chapter in her life. It is said that every home holds a story within its walls. Some stories are filled with joy, while others hide secrets that can unravel everything. Akachi and Nyah's modest home was no exception. A story had just begun, but its end was yet to be written. The words from that night and the cryptic file now echoed relentlessly in Nyah's mind. She wanted to confront her brother, to demand answers, but each time she looked at his face, she found herself hesitating. The responsible and composed Akachi was now a puzzle she couldn't solve. "Brother, are you hiding something?" Nyah finally gathered the courage to ask one day. "Nyah, your focus should be on your studies and your life. Leave everything else to me," Akachi replied in his usual serious tone. Yet, a strange silence now lingered between them. Every word felt like a doubt. Every smile a question. Nearby, Akachi and Nyah had a distant cousin, Kioni, who lived close to their home. Kioni had always felt that the respect Akachi received in the village was rightfully his. Though he wore a mask of friendliness, his heart harbored a burning jealousy. One evening, as Akachi returned from his work, Kioni stopped him. "Akachi, do you really think you can handle everything? Life can turn against you one day," Kioni said with a peculiar smile. Akachi smiled faintly and replied, "Life stands with those who have courage, Kioni. You should believe in that too." But beneath their words lay an unspoken tension, as if much more was left unsaid. One day, Nyah was sitting in her home's veranda when she noticed something unusual happening nearby. Keone was there, carrying a bag, heading toward Akachi's room. "What is Keone doing here?" Nyah whispered to herself. Quietly, she followed him. Her heart raced when she saw Keone entering Akachi's room. He opened a drawer and took out the same file Nyah had discovered a few days ago. Without wasting a moment, Nyah stormed into the room. "What are you doing, Keone?" she demanded angrily. For a moment, Keone said nothing, then smirked. "You think Akachi is innocent? You have no idea what he's hiding." "What do you know?" Nyah asked, frustration growing in her voice. "What I know," Keone said, his words dripping with malice, "would make you run far away from your brother." That night, when Akachi returned home, Nyah didn't tell him anything. But her doubts were now deeper than ever. Akachi noticed something strange in Nyah's behavior and asked, "Is everything okay, Nyah?" Nyah only nodded, but inside, a storm was brewing. She knew she had to take action. The following night, Nyah made a bold decision. Without telling Akachi, she would go to the derrick tree mentioned in the photograph. She needed to uncover the truth. When she reached the forest, she was shocked to see someone already there. It was Keone, holding a small dagger in his hand. "What are you doing here?" Nyah shouted. Keone turned to her with a sly smile. "Akachi hasn't told you anything, has he? Good, it's time for you to learn the truth." And then, a piercing scream echoed through the forest. They say every path in life has a turning point that reveals a person's true identity. Akachi, Nyah, and Keone were entangled in a tale that had now reached its darkest moment. A moment where a single decision could not only shatter relationships, but take lives. In the dead of night, Nyah's heart was burdened with everything that had happened. Her encounter with Keone in the forest had left her living in constant fear and doubt. But she didn't know that the secret about to be revealed was only the beginning. Nyah's face was now consumed by fear and hatred. She turned and began to run, her footsteps pounding in sync with her racing heart as she moved deeper into the jungle. Akachi followed close behind, but by the time he reached the bend in the path, Nyah had vanished into the shadows of the dense forest. At the edge of the jungle, Akachi stood alone, his hands stained with blood, his mind spiraling in chaos. "She doesn't understand, not yet," he muttered to himself. "But if she finds out, I'll lose everything." Meanwhile, Nyah crouched behind a thick tree trunk, struggling to catch her breath. Her trembling hands clutched the file tightly, the evidence of Akachi's dark secrets. Unbeknownst to both of them, a third pair of eyes was silently observing from the depths of the jungle. Who was this mysterious figure? What were they after? Only time would reveal the answers. As the dark night bore witness to a brewing conspiracy, the stakes grew higher. Akachi, burdened by guilt and fear, tried to think of his next move. But now, Nyah had the file, the key that could unravel everything. Neither knew the storm that awaited them. By morning, sunlight pierced through the jungle canopy, casting a faint glow on the forest floor. Near the outskirts of the jungle, a fisherman stumbled upon a gruesome sight. Keone's lifeless body. The man's face turned pale with shock as he ran to alert the authorities. Within an hour, the crime scene was swarming with officers and investigators. Leading the team was Detective Amadi, known for his sharp intellect and expertise in solving complex cases. Carefully examining the scene, Amadi knelt beside the body and surveyed the surroundings. Who killed Keone, and why? He wondered aloud, his mind racing with questions yet to be answered. News of Keone's murder quickly spread through the village. At home, Nyah's face drained of color when she heard the report. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and guilt, but she maintained her composure, pretending to be shocked. "How could this happen?" she asked aloud, masking her inner turmoil. Akachi, on the other hand, worked hard to conceal his emotions. Standing before the investigators, he spoke calmly. "I wasn't anywhere near the jungle last night." But amidst the chaos, Keone's grieving mother, Zola, wiped her tears and spoke with a voice filled with sorrow and resolve. "I want justice. My son was a good man. He didn't deserve this." Detective Amadi and his team began their investigation in the jungle. Every corner was photographed and every footprint analyzed. Among the peculiar findings was a small torn piece of a diary. On it, a single cryptic sentence was written. "If you want to understand the truth, you must first delve into the depths of the secret." Amadi examined the diary piece closely, puzzled by its meaning. "Is this some kind of clue?" he asked his team. Meanwhile, the forensic team uncovered a small, blood-stained knife near the jungle. Though it bore no fingerprints matching Akachi's, its design was eerily similar to the knives found in Akachi's home. Nyah sat in the corner of her room, staring repeatedly at the file in her hands. Her heart urged her to hand it over to the police, but her mind warned that doing so would invite greater danger. "What if Akachi tries to harm me? And if I don't hand this file over, how long can this secret remain hidden?" she thought, her anxiety mounting. Every knock on the door made her heart race, as she feared the police had come for her. But she also knew that exposing Akachi's true face was a rare opportunity she couldn't let slip away. Akachi, aware that suspicion was mounting against him, began crafting a new plan to mislead the police. "I wasn't anywhere near the jungle that night," he said with confidence. "I was with my friend. He can vouch for me." However, his friend Chidi was already on the radar of the investigation team. When Amadi questioned Chidi, his response raised more doubts. "I wasn't with Akachi that night. I think he's hiding something." Amadi's suspicion of Akachi deepened, but he still lacked concrete evidence to move forward. The next day, Amadi and his team questioned Nyah. Her nervous demeanor didn't escape Amadi's sharp gaze. "Nyah, were you near the jungle that night?" Amadi asked directly. Nyah hesitated for a moment before replying, "I was just passing by. I don't know anything." After observing her closely, Amadi leaned toward his assistant and whispered, "This girl is hiding something. We need to keep a closer eye on her." Unbeknownst to Nyah, the police were now watching her every move. What she also didn't realize was that Akachi had been silently following her too. As the web of secrets tightened, both the police and Akachi closed in, leaving Nyah caught in a storm where every step she took could decide her fate. One night, as Nyah attempted to hide the file in a locker at her home, Akachi was lurking in the shadows, watching her every move. "You betrayed me, Nyah," he whispered softly, though his voice was loud enough for her to hear. Nyah turned around, startled, but all she could see was darkness. Akachi was ready to confront her, but someone else was present that night near the jungle. Detective Amadi. A deadly game, a massive conspiracy, and a file that could change everything. Would the truth come to light? Would justice prevail? Only time would tell. The deeper the secret, the more restless its ocean becomes. The hidden file in the darkness of the jungle was now beginning to surface, revealing the weight of truth one page at a time. But truth often comes at a cost. Akachi, Nyah, and Zola were all entangled in this storm of revelations, bracing themselves for a moment that would alter their lives forever. Detective Amadi, along with his team, broke into Nyah's home and retrieved the file hidden in the locker. Each word in the file peeled back the layers of Akachi's sinister conspiracy. Zola, in her desperate pursuit of justice for her son Kioni, read the file with trembling hands and tearful eyes. The revelations were shocking. Kioni's murder was the result of lethal greed. The file disclosed a land dispute between Akachi and Kioni, triggered by Kioni's involvement in a lucrative deal. Consumed by rage and greed, Akachi decided to silence his friend forever in the depths of the jungle. Detective Amadi interrogated Nyah, who was now crushed under the weight of her guilt. With downcast eyes, she confessed, "I knew what Akachi had done, but I was terrified. If I spoke the truth, he would have killed me too." Her words added another dimension to the investigation. "I went to the jungle to leave the file there, hoping no one would find the truth. But deep down, I knew this day would come." Nyah's confession wasn't just an admission of guilt. It was a glimpse into her inner turmoil. Every word resonated with raw emotion, touching the hearts of those who heard her story. Detective Amadi set a trap for Akachi. He lured him to the very spot in the jungle where Kioni had been murdered. Standing in the shadows of the towering trees, Amadi confronted him. "Is this your doing, Akachi?" he asked, his voice sharp and unwavering. Akachi denied it at first, but with forensic evidence and Nyah's confession laid out, his facade crumbled. "I did it for my family," Akachi admitted, his voice a mixture of anger and guilt. His words hung heavily in the air, revealing a man torn between justification and remorse. As the weight of his actions bore down on him, it became clear that the truth, though devastating, had finally triumphed. "I couldn't let go of the land. Kioni betrayed me, But I never thought things would escalate to this point, Akachi confessed, tears streaming down his face. Akachi's admission shattered Zola's heart into pieces. You took my son away from me, Zola screamed, her voice echoing with the anguish of a mother who had lost everything. Her cry pierced through the silence, leaving an indelible mark on everyone present. But the story wasn't over yet. As Detective Amati flipped through another page of the file, his expression changed suddenly. There's another name mentioned here, he said. Zola, still overwhelmed with grief for her son, froze in place. Her tearful eyes turned toward Amati, silently dreading what he might reveal. On the page, a name stood out. Nyah was involved too. This revelation hit everyone like a thunderbolt. Nyah, whom Zola had trusted until now, was actually the one manipulating Akachi for her own gain. Nyah's true motive had been to exploit the land dispute and the lucrative deal for her own benefit. Detective Amati turned to Nyah and asked directly, "Is this true?" Nyah's face turned pale. With trembling lips and tear-filled eyes, she confessed, "I didn't tell Akachi to kill Kioni. I only wanted to resolve the land dispute." But no one was ready to believe her anymore. Zola, who had considered Nyah her ally, uttered only one sentence. "You were the biggest mistake of my life. You made me lose everything." Both Akachi and Nyah, burdened by the weight of their greed and betrayal, were handed over to the police. This story wasn't just about greed and deceit. It was a haunting depiction of human emotions. A mother's tears, a brother's blood, and the breaking of a family. Zola achieved justice, but the cost of that justice was so high that it changed her life forever. The truth, once revealed, doesn't stop life. But the new beginning it brings is often more painful than the past. For Zola, days and nights became indistinguishable. Every morning she would walk into Kioni's room and fix his bed, as if he were going to return one day. Her heart carried only one question. If I had tried to understand my family earlier, could this tragedy have been avoided? One day, when her friend Layla came to visit, Zola broke down completely. "I gave my son justice," Zola said through her tears. "But can justice bring him back?" Holding Zola's hands, Layla replied gently, "Life doesn't come back, but what you've done is a mother's greatest triumph. Your pain won't last forever. Kioni's memory will always stay with you, but you still have the chance to start anew." Though Zola's tears stopped, her eyes still carried the same question every mother would ask. If everything had been right from the beginning, would this pain have ever existed? In jail, Akachi's condition worsened with each passing day. He had taken his son's life in his greed and jealousy, and now he was forced to live with the pain of his actions. One night, Akachi banged his fists against the cell door and screamed, "Zola, forgive me. I couldn't see what my anger would cost me." The other prisoners heard his cries, but no one even looked his way. His guilt had become his greatest enemy, a constant companion in his isolation. Nyah, though not held legally accountable for the murder, found herself judged by the harshest court of all, her own conscience. Manipulating Akachi and trying to destroy her family had left her hollow. She spent her days sitting in a corner of her home, reflecting on the choices she had made. One day she whispered to herself, "What I've done can never be forgiven, but do I even deserve a chance to start over?" One day, Zola received a letter from Akachi in jail. The letter read, "Zola, I know forgiveness is not enough, but I can't live this life anymore. Kioni's death is entirely my fault, and justice has been served. You must learn to move beyond your pain. This is my final request." At the bottom of the letter, signed by Akachi, there was one more line. "This is the last testament of my guilt." As Zola read these words, the letter fell from her trembling hands. News arrived from the jail. Akachi had taken his own life. Life's journey often brings us to crossroads where we don't know what our next step will be. For Zola, this journey was far from over. How Akachi's and Nyah's decisions would shape their lives was something only time could reveal. But one thing was clear. The pain this family endured was a stark reminder of how deeply truth and greed can clash. Zola sacrificed everything for the sake of truth. But could her decision ever erase her guilt? The pain of Akachi's death and the shattered bonds of her family lingered like scars that might never heal. And the biggest question remained, could a family, driven by greed and secrets, ever find a way to live with honesty and peace? Or was it a never-ending cycle of betrayal, guilt, and yet another sacrifice?